The replacement. Elena clutched the worn photograph, its edges softened with years of love. Daniel's face, captured in a moment of unrestrained laughter, stared back at her. It had been 3 months since the accident, 3 months since her world had shattered. Daniel, her rock, her confidant, her love, was gone. The vibrant businessman, always on the move, had been felled by a sudden heart attack, leaving a void in her life that ached with an unbearable emptiness. Days blurred into weeks, filled with the hushed whispers of condolences and the suffocating scent of lilies. Elena moved through life in a fog of grief, the vibrant colors of her world muted into shades of gray. She replayed every memory, every shared joke, every tender touch, clinging to them as if they were lifelines in a sea of despair. One rainy afternoon, a figure emerged from the mist shrouding their small-town cemetery. He stood before Daniel's grave, his silhouette a mirror image of the man in the photograph. Elena's breath hitched. It couldn't be. "Daniel," she whispered, her voice trembling. The man turned, his face etched with a grief that mirrored her own. "Elena," he said, his voice a familiar echo. It was him, yet not him. His eyes held a depth she hadn't seen in Daniel, a hint of vulnerability that her husband had always kept hidden behind his confident facade. He explained he'd been away, a business trip gone wrong, communication impossible. He'd only just learned of the tragedy. Elena, desperate to cling to any fragment of Daniel, welcomed him back with open arms. His touch, his scent, his smile, it was all so familiar, yet tinged with a subtle difference she attributed to the shared trauma. Life with Daniel resumed, a bittersweet echo of their past. He was more attentive, more present. He'd leave his phone aside during dinner, listen intently to her stories, and surprise her with wildflowers picked on his morning runs. It was as if the accident had stripped away a layer of his ambition, revealing a tenderness she'd yearned for. One evening, while sorting through Daniel's belongings, Elena stumbled upon an old box tucked away in the attic. Inside, a faded photograph showed 2 identical boys, their arms slung around each other, grinning mischievously at the camera. On the back, a handwritten note. "Daniel and Ethan, inseparable, forever. Ethan." The name echoed in her mind. She confronted Daniel, the photograph trembling in her hand. Tears welled up in his eyes, the truth spilling out like a long-held secret. He was Ethan, the twin brother Daniel had rarely spoken of, separated at birth. A life lived in the shadow of his successful sibling. He'd felt an inexplicable pull towards this town, a sense of foreboding that had led him to the cemetery, to her. Elena's world, already fragile, threatened to crumble again. Betrayal, grief, and a strange sense of wonder warred within her. This man, this Ethan, was not her husband, yet he had filled the void with a love that felt both familiar and new. "Why?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. "I don't know," Ethan replied, his voice raw with honesty. "I felt drawn to you, to this life. It felt right." The truth hung heavy between them, a ghost in their resurrected life. Elena, torn between the comfort of the familiar and the sting of deceit, made a choice. She chose to embrace the unseen, the fantastical twist of fate that had brought Ethan into her life. Perhaps it was a lie, a deception built on grief. But it was also a second chance, a love born from the ashes of loss, a testament to the enduring power of connection that defied even death. They continued their life together, the shadow of Daniel's memory gradually fading, replaced by the vibrant reality of their shared present. And sometimes, late at night, when Ethan held her close, Elena would catch a glimpse of Daniel in his eyes, a fleeting reminder of the unseen forces that had shaped their destiny.